secrets.
The first session seemed normal until he said her daughter's name. Dr. Laila Bennett froze mid-sentence. She had never told him about Amara. No one in the city even knew she had a child. Dr. Laila Bennett, a respected therapist in New Orleans, prides herself on helping others untangle their trauma while keeping her own past locked away. But when a new client, Darius Cole, starts revealing details about her personal life things, no stranger should know Laila realizes their sessions are more dangerous than they seem. As murders begin to surface in the city, each echoing a story shared in her office, Laila suspects Darius isn't just another troubled soul. He's playing a psychological game that could ruin her life. The deeper she digs, the clearer it becomes. Someone wants her secrets exposed, and the price of silence may be death. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. The rain came down in sheets that afternoon, hammering the French Quarter until the streets glistened like obsidian. Dr. Laila Bennett adjusted her glasses, watching the storm roll through the tall windows of her office. Mondays were always heavy, but this one felt different, thick with something she couldn't name. She checked the clock. 3:58 p.m. Her last appointment of the day. The name on her schedule was unfamiliar. Darius Cole. 34, self-employed, no prior therapy history. Intake form vague. Reason for visit. To talk before I do something I can't take back. Laila closed the folder just as the elevator chimed. Footsteps echoed down the hall, measured unhurried. When the door opened, he stood there, water dripping from a black trench coat, a faint smile curving his lips. Dr. Bennett? His voice was smooth, almost melodic. Yes, come in, Mr. Cole. She gestured to the leather chair across from her desk. He sat, his eyes sweeping the room, not rudely, but like he was memorizing every detail. Up close, he was striking. Not handsome in a conventional sense, but sharp, like a knife you didn't know was in the drawer. Dark skin, close-cropped hair, eyes that didn't blink enough. So, Laila said, settling into her chair with her notepad poised, what brings you here today? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Just watched her with that unreadable expression. Then, you help people keep their lives from falling apart, right? That's part of it, she replied evenly. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. What if the only way to fix your life is to break someone else's? The words hung there, cold and heavy. Laila felt the first ripple of unease crawl up her spine, but her voice stayed calm. Why don't you tell me what you mean by that? He smiled again, this time wider, showing teeth. Later. First, I want to know about you. How long you been in this city, Dr. Bennett? Laila stiffened slightly. Clients asked about her before, but something in his tone made it feel less like curiosity and more like reconnaissance. I've been here a few years, she said carefully, scribbling a note. Redirect questions. Possible boundary issues. He nodded slowly. You got family here? Her pen paused. That's not really relevant to Amara, he said softly, cutting her off. Pretty name. How old is she now? 8. The notepad slipped from her hand. Her throat went dry, her pulse roaring in her ears. No one in New Orleans knew about Amara. She'd made sure of that. Even her closest colleagues thought she lived alone. How do you know that name? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Darius leaned back, eyes glittering like polished stone. Because secrets, he said, have a way of crawling out when you least expect them. And then he smiled again, slow and deliberate, as thunder cracked across the sky. The storm had quieted into a steady drizzle, by the time Darius left her office, but the unease he carried lingered like smoke in the room. Laila sat frozen, staring at the door long after it clicked shut, her pulse refusing to settle. Amara.
Sweet dreams, Dr. Bennett. Tell Amara I said hi.
He said her name, her daughter's name. Not possible. Not here. Laila kept her life compartmentalized, home in one box, work in another, and the past sealed tight in a vault no one touched. She made sure of it the day she left Atlanta for good. She drew in a slow breath and reached for the notepad on the floor. Her notes were a mess, half sentences, jagged lines. She wrote in bold letters. Session 1. Darius Cole. Possible threat. Her fingers hovered over her phone. One call to the police could start a file, get this man flagged. But what would she tell them? My client knows my daughter's name? They'd laugh her out of the station. Therapists didn't panic. Therapists assessed, documented, and reported when there was imminent danger. Was there. Darius hadn't threatened her, not directly. But something about him, the confidence, the calm way he said Amara's name, gnawed at her like a slow leak in the dark. She turned to her laptop and pulled up his intake form again. Name, Darius Cole. Age, 34. Occupation, consultant. Address, listed as a P.O. box. No emergency contact, no references. Phone number unlisted in any public database. She tried running it through an old background search tool she kept for difficult cases, but it came back empty. Like he didn't exist. The elevator dinged outside, snapping her back. She locked the screen and began shutting down for the night, her nerves taut. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow, she'd dig deeper. For now, she just needed to get home, to Amara. The house smelled of jasmine and warm sugar cookies when she stepped inside her mother's doing. Mama had insisted on moving in after the divorce, swearing she didn't trust the city with Laila and Amara alone. Tonight, that decision felt like a blessing. Mama? Laila called softly, setting her purse down. In here, baby. Her mother's voice floated from the kitchen, followed by the hum of an old jazz record. Laila exhaled and headed toward the sound, already rehearsing the lie she'd have to tell to explain why she looked shaken. But when she rounded the corner, her mother's smile faltered. Lord, what happened? You look like you seen a ghost. Laila forced a laugh. Just a long day. She kissed her mother's cheek and crouched down as Amara came barreling in from the den, curls bouncing, her favorite stuffed giraffe clutched tight. Mommy! Amara wrapped her arms around Laila's neck, and the tightness in Laila's chest eased for a second. Then a thought struck her like ice water. What if Darius knew where they lived? She pulled back just enough to study her daughter's face. You been outside today, baby? Amara shook her head. Just with Grandma. We made cookies. Laila nodded, trying to smile, but her mind was already spiraling. That night, long after the house went quiet, she sat on the edge of her bed, laptop balanced on her knees. She typed his name again, Darius Cole. Same nothing result. She tried another database. Still nothing. Finally, in desperation, she scrolled through social media. And there, on an obscure forum that looked like it hadn't been active in years, she found something. A thread titled, People You Should Never Cross. Buried among a dozen usernames was a photo, blurry, taken in what looked like a bar. But the eyes, those same cold, unblinking eyes, were unmistakable. The caption read, Darius C. the Collector. Laila stared at the screen, her heart pounding louder than the rain against the window. Collector of what? And why had he walked into her office? The phone buzzed on her nightstand, jolting her so hard She nearly dropped the laptop. A text from an unknown number lit the screen. "Sweet dreams, Dr. Bennett. Tell Amara I said hi." Her breath hitched. She hadn't given him her number. Slowly, her gaze slid to the window. Outside, across the street, a black car idled under a broken streetlight, and someone was sitting in it. The message glared back at her from the screen. "Sweet dreams, Dr. Bennett. Tell Amara I said hi." Layla's throat constricted. Her first instinct was to wake her mother, grab Amara, and get in the car, but where would they go? And what would she say? She set the phone down, hands trembling, and moved to the window. The black car was still there, parked beneath the flickering streetlight. Rain clung to its surface like oil. She squinted, trying to make out the driver, but the glass reflected nothing but shadows. Her pulse thudded against her ribs as she reached for her phone. Again 911 hovered on her screen. But then a thought stopped her cold. What if the police start asking questions? What if this blows up at work? What if... Her career couldn't afford scandal, not after everything she fought for in Atlanta. She'd clawed her way back from a wrecked marriage and a license review after her ex-husband's accusations. One rumor could undo all of that. And maybe this was a bluff. Maybe Darius just wanted to scare her. She tore her gaze from the window, switched off the lamp, and slid into bed fully clothed, her laptop still open beside her. Sleep didn't come not, even when the car finally drove away an hour later, its taillights glowing like embers as they disappeared into the night. Morning. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting gold stripes across her floor. For a brief moment, it almost felt like normal life again. Almost. Layla crept down the hall, listening for any sign of Amara. She found her in the kitchen, perched on a stool, chatting with her grandmother about school projects, as if the world hadn't tilted off its axis last night. "Morning, baby," Mama said, eyeing Laila over her glasses. "You barely slept." "I'm fine," Layla lied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." "You got too much on your mind," Mama shot back. "You need a vacation, not more patience. Vacation." The word sounded like a joke. There was no leaving, not now. She kissed Amara's curls, inhaling the scent of coconut oil and sugar cookies, then slipped out the door before Mama could press her. The office. The day unfolded in a blur of clients, depression, marital conflict, childhood trauma. She nodded, she soothed, she scribbled notes, all while her mind buzzed with one name, Darius Cole. He wasn't on the schedule today, but his presence clung to the room like a stain she couldn't scrub out. Between sessions, she pulled up that old forum again. The username attached to his photo was TheCollector78. Collector of what? Her gut twisted as she read through the replies. He doesn't take money. He takes leverage. When he finds your weakness, it's already over. Ask about St. Charles Street if you want to disappear. The last post was dated 3 years ago. No other mention since. She printed the thread, folded it into her notebook, and tried to steady her breathing before her 2 p.m. session. But when the door opened, her heart stopped. Darius stood there, coat gone this time, wearing a crisp gray sweater that looked hand-stitched. His smile was polite, almost warm like any other client. "Dr. Bennett," he said smoothly. "Hope I'm not early." You didn't have an appointment today," she managed, her voice barely even. "I know," he replied, strolling in as if he owned the place. "But I couldn't wait another week. We've got so much to talk about." Layla gripped the edge of her desk. "Mr. Cole, I have other clients. They can wait." His tone was soft, but carried an edge sharp enough to cut glass. "This is important. You want to help me, don't you?" Before she could respond, he reached into his satchel and set something on the desk. A small leather-bound notebook. Worn edges. A faint scent of jasmine clinging to it. Her stomach dropped. She knew that notebook. It was hers, one she kept at home, in a locked drawer. "I took the liberty of borrowing this," Darius said, sliding it toward her. "Hope you don't mind. You keep interesting thoughts about your patients." Her vision blurred, heat surging to her face. "How did you—" "Relax," he interrupted gently. "Your secrets are safe, for now." He leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, his gaze steady and cold. "But here's the thing, Dr. Bennett," he said, voice dropping to a whisper. "You and we're going to help each other, whether you like it or not." The leather notebook sat between them like a live grenade. Laila's pulse thundered in her ears as her eyes scanned the cover, her handwriting peeking from the edge of a folded page. My notes, my patients, my career. If that book left this office or worse, landed online, she was finished. Her voice came out tight. "You broke into my home." Darius tilted his head, amused. "Technically, I retrieved something. You should thank me. That drawer lock? Pathetic. Anyone could have gotten in." Laila swallowed hard, her fingers digging into the edge of her desk. "What do you want?" He smiled, a slow, deliberate curve that didn't reach his eyes. Ah, finally, the right question. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, voice dropping low. "You're going to help me, Dr. Bennett. You're going to teach me how to fix people." Her brow furrowed. "Fix?" "I've been watching," he continued, his tone calm, almost conversational. "How you talk to them, the words you choose. How you make them spill their secrets like they're bleeding out on the floor." Laila gripped the desk harder. "That's called therapy, Darius. It's not a game." "Oh, it's a game," he murmured. "The best one. And you're the queen on the board." Her stomach clenched. "Why me? There are hundreds of therapists in this city, but none with your history." His smile sharpened. "That's what makes this fun." Her blood ran cold. "You don't know anything about me." "Don't I?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photograph. Face down, he slid it across the desk with 2 fingers. Laila hesitated, then flipped it over and felt the air leave her lungs. It was Amara, standing in their front yard, holding her giraffe, grinning at the camera. "I didn't touch her," Darius said softly. "I'd never hurt a child. I'm not a monster, Laila." The sound of her name on his lips made her skin crawl. "But this," he continued, tapping the photo, "is your incentive to cooperate. You keep me happy. She stays safe. You don't. And things get complicated." Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. "If you ever go near her, then let's make sure I don't have to," he said lightly, as if they were discussing a business deal. "First assignment, I need you to evaluate someone for me. Someone delicate." "What?" Her voice cracked. "You're going to meet her, talk to her, and tell me what makes her tick. Every fear, every weakness." He leaned in, his breath warm, his words smooth as silk. "Think of it as a consultation." Laila stared at him, horror knotting in her chest. "That's illegal. Unethical." "So was breaking into your home," he cut in. "We're past ethics, Doctor." He stood, straightening his sweater, towering over her desk like a shadow stretching long. "I'll send you her details tonight. Don't keep me waiting." He reached for the notebook and tucked it under his arm like a prize. "Oh? And Laila?" His voice softened to a whisper as he opened the door. "You write beautifully. Those little lines about guilt and control? Poetic." And he was gone. Laila sat frozen, breath shallow, staring at the empty doorway. The silence pressed down like concrete. Outside, rain had started again, soft, relentless. And on her phone, a new message buzzed in. "Unknown number. She likes coffee. Black. No sugar. Tomorrow. 11 Ahmed Nizenru." Layla's hands trembled as she typed 2 words before she could stop herself. "Who is she?" The reply came in seconds. Darius, the first piece in our game. Maison Rue Café sat on the corner of Chartres Street, its old brick walls and wrought iron balcony dripping with history. Normally, Laila loved this place. The aroma of chicory coffee, the hum of jazz, the soft murmur of locals swapping gossip. Today, it felt like a stage, and she was walking into a scene she couldn't control. She arrived 10 minutes early, scanning the tables through the rain-streaked window. Her stomach churned. What if this woman knew? What if she was part of his game? Laila adjusted her scarf and stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming like a warning. The warmth hit her first, then the low saxophone spilling from the speakers. She found an empty table in the back, her view sweeping the entrance. At 10:59 she appeared. Tall, elegant, wrapped in a camel-colored coat that probably cost more than Laila's monthly rent. Her hair was sleek, her skin a rich mahogany tone that caught the light. She moved like someone who owned the air around her. The hostess led her over. "Dr. Bennett?" Laila forced a smile. "Yes." The woman extended a hand with long crimson nails. "Sloan?" Her voice was smooth, carrying the faintest trace of the Upper East Coast. Laila took the hand, her pulse hammering as she noted the firmness of Sloane's grip. Confident, controlled. "Please," Sloane said, sliding into the chair across from her. "I'm glad you could make time. Darius speaks very highly of you." Laila froze. Darius told her? She tried to keep her face neutral. "You? Know Darius well?" A slow smile curved Sloane's lips. "Very well." She reached for the menu without looking, as if the question amused her. "He and I go back years. He's complicated. You probably know that by now." Laila nodded faintly, her therapist mask snapping into place. "He mentioned you wanted to talk." "Yes." Sloane set the menu down, her gaze sharpening. "I've been out of balance lately. Stress, anxiety, trouble sleeping." The standard script. But something in Sloane's tone felt rehearsed, as if she were testing Laila rather than seeking help. Laila pulled out her notebook, not the one Darius stole, a fresh one. "Why do you think that is?" Sloane stirred her coffee, black as ink, without breaking eye contact. "Because when men like Darius are unhappy, women like me pay the price." The words sliced through the hum of the cafe like glass underfoot. Laila's pen hovered mid-her. "Are you saying he's hurting you?" Sloane smiled faintly, but her eyes were cold. "Not yet, but he will. That's what he does. That's what he's always done." Laila's pulse thudded in her ears. "What exactly does he do?" Sloane leaned in, lowering her voice. "He finds people's weaknesses, collects them, and then—" She tapped the table softly, once, twice, like a judge's gavel. "He decides who stays in the game." A chill crawled up Laila's spine. This wasn't just about manipulation. This was ritual. A system. "Why tell me this?" Laila asked quietly. "Because," Sloane said, her crimson nails drumming lightly now, "you're his newest piece, and he's watching you." Laila's stomach dropped. Before she could respond, Sloane's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then stood abruptly. "Our time's up." She slipped on her coat with practiced grace, leaving a $100 bill under her untouched coffee. As she turned to leave, she paused and looked back, her voice barely a whisper. "Be careful, Doctor. He only plays games he plans to win." Then she was gone, the bell chiming as the door swung shut behind her. Laila sat frozen, her coffee untouched, her notes filled with phrases that sounded more like threats than therapy. Her phone buzzed. She didn't want to look, but she did. Unknown number. Beautiful meeting, wasn't it? "You're a natural. Let's make this interesting. Tonight, midnight. Check your porch." The message ended with a photo attachment. Laila's breath hitched as the image loaded. Amara, sleeping in her bed. A hand mail, dark-skinned, resting lightly on her favorite giraffe. Midnight in New Orleans carried its own rhythm, a low thrum of jazz bleeding from late-night bars. The occasional wail of a distant siren, the hum of street lamps burning through humid darkness. But tonight, Laila heard none of it. She sat rigid on the couch, phone clenched in her hand, the photo burned into her brain. Amara, safe in their home, or so she thought, while a stranger's hand rested on her child's toy like a signature. Every muscle screamed to rush into Amara's room, scoop her up, and run. But fear rooted her to the spot. If he got inside once, he can do it again. At 11:57, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. 3 minutes. Her chest constricted. She rose, moving like a sleepwalker toward the front door. The porch light flicked weakly in the humid air, casting more shadows than safety. She gripped the knob, breath shallow, and waited. 11:59. Thunder grumbled far off, as if the sky itself held its breath. Then a soft thud on the porch. She froze, heart hammering. The old wood creaked under retreating footsteps. Whoever left, it didn't linger. Summoning every ounce of nerve, Laila unlocked the door and opened it a crack. A single cardboard box sat at the threshold. No label, no tape, just a plain box with one thing scrawled across the top in black marker. Open May. She glanced down the street empty. No car, no figure lurking in the shadows. Only the slick glow of rain-soaked pavement under the streetlight. Hands trembling, she brought the box inside and set it on the kitchen table. Her mother's room was silent down the hall. Amara's nightlight still glowed under the door. Slowly, Laila peeled the flaps apart. Inside, nestled in black tissue paper, was a stack of photographs bound with twine. She untied the bundle, her breath catching as she flipped through them. Amara at the park, laughing on the swings. Laila locking the office door yesterday. Her mother in the produce aisle, bending over peaches. Each photo was crisp, close taken with precision. The last one made her stomach turn. Laila asleep in her own bed, mouth slightly open, the clock glowing 3:12 a Mecca. Her knees nearly buckled. He'd been here. Inside, close enough to hear her breathe. Something slipped from between the photos. A playing card. The Queen of Hearts. Words were scrawled across it in neat, sharp handwriting. Round 2 starts now. The phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look. She had to. Darius. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., you'll get the name. Don't disappoint me. She clutched the counter, bile rising in her throat. What do you want from me? She whispered, even though she knew he wouldn't answer the question not yet. Another buzz. One final message. Darius. Sleep well, doctor. The game gets harder from here. Laila shoved the box under the sink and locked every door, every window, twice. Then she slipped into Amara's room, curling beside her little girl, her mind spinning. She'd played it safe too long. Therapy rules, ethics, discretion, they didn't matter, no. The man who called himself the collector had crossed every line, and the only way to keep her daughter alive was to learn his game. But even as that thought burned in her mind, another whispered like a curse. What if you can't win? Outside, across the street, a black sedan idled beneath the streetlight, engine humming low like a predator's breath. Morning light crept through the blinds like pale fingers, but Laila hadn't slept. She lay on the couch, clothes from yesterday still clinging to her skin, staring at the Queen of Hearts on the coffee table. Round 2 starts now. Every instinct screamed to pack up Amara and disappear. But vanish where? Darius had eyes everywhere photos proved that. And if she ran, he'd see it as betrayal. She couldn't risk Amara paying the price. At 8:54 a.m. her phone buzzed. Darius, 9 p.m. St. Charles and 9th. Wear black. No jewelry. No phone. Another message followed instantly. Darius, this one's special. Don't disappoint me, Doctor. Her stomach nodded. St. Charles. A stretch lined with oak trees and streetcar tracks, where the mansion stood like old money secrets. Whoever tonight's assignment was, they weren't random. The day of waiting. Every hour dragged like an anchor. At work, her sessions blurred together. She caught herself zoning out while a client sobbed about her divorce. Twice, she miswrote prescriptions mistakes she never made. By late afternoon, her mother noticed the strain. "Laila, baby, what's wrong with you? You pale as chalk." "Just tired," Laila murmured, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "It's been a week." Mama studied her like only mothers can, suspicion simmering behind those sharp eyes. "You sure there ain't something you need to tell me?" Laila opened her mouth, then shut it. How could she explain any of this? "Hey, Mama, my client's a predator, playing a real-life chess game with our lives." Instead, she kissed her mother's cheek and checked on Amara, who was sprawled on the rug, coloring a picture of a giraffe in pink. Laila swallowed hard, a silent promise pounding in her chest. Whatever this man wants, I'll do it. Just keep her safe. Nightfall. She left at 8:15, dressed in black jeans, a black sweater, and sneakers. No jewelry. No phone. Just a coat and a pounding of her heart. The air outside smelled of wet earth and magnolias, thick with that post-rain heaviness New Orleans knew too well. Streetcars clanged in the distance, their lights glowing like ghosts through the mist. At exactly 9 o'clock, she reached the corner of St. Charles and 9th. The mansions loomed like silent sentinels, their iron gates dripping with moss, windows glowing faint amber. A black sedan slid to the curb. The back door opened. "Get in," a voice said from the shadows inside. Laila hesitated, then climbed in, the leather seats cold against her legs. The door shut with a soft, final click. Darius sat across from her, immaculate as ever, his eyes glinting in the dim glow of the dashboard. Between them, a slim folder lay on the seat. "You're punctual," he said, smiling faintly. "Good. Punctuality means you're learning." Her voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" "I told you," he said softly. "Help, guidance. Tonight's assignment will test your instincts." He slid the folder toward her. "Open it." Her hands shook as she lifted the flap. Inside was a single photograph of a man mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit, the kind of face that belonged on a corporate magazine cover. Beneath it, a name, Elliot Morrow. "Who is he?" She whispered. "Important," Darius replied. "To me, to others. Elliot's decisions move money, people, futures. I need to know what makes him tick, what keeps him up at night, and what," his voice dipped to a chilling softness, "would make him break." Laila stared at the photo, bile rising in her throat. "You want me to talk to him?" "Not just talk." Darius's smile curved like a blade. "You'll observe, engage, get close enough to understand his pressure points." Her pulse hammered. "And if I refuse?" His eyes darkened. "You won't." Before she could respond, the car slowed, pulling to a stop in front of an opulent white-columned mansion. Lights glowed warmly inside, and faint strains of jazz drifted through the air. Dozens of cars lined the driveway. "A charity gala," Darius murmured, gesturing toward the steps. "Perfect cover. Elliot will be there. So will I, watching." Her voice cracked. "How am I supposed to?" "You're resourceful, Doctor. That's why I chose you." The door clicked open on her side. Darius leaned in close, his words brushing her ear like ice. "Fail me, and I'll send your mother the photo of you sleeping. The one where your daughter's hand is on your cheek." Then he leaned back, smiling like the devil in tailored gray. "Now go play your part." Laila stepped out, her legs trembling, the taste of fear bitter on her tongue. She looked up at the mansion, its grand entrance glowing like a stage, and knew that whatever waited inside was more than a test. This was the second move in a game where losing wasn't an option. The mansion pulsed with life-golden light spilling through tall windows, laughter mingling with the lazy hum of a live jazz quartet. Laila gripped the wrought iron railing as she climbed the steps, each footfall echoing her heartbeat. She'd never felt so exposed. The black jeans and sweater felt wrong here among silk gowns and tuxedos. But Darius didn't give her time to change or think. That was part of his control. Keep her off balance. The doorman barely glanced at her before stepping aside. Inside, opulence slapped her in the face. Crystal chandeliers dripping like frozen rain, polished marble floors, champagne glasses catching light like tiny suns. A smell of money clung to the air cologne and old whiskey and power. She moved slowly through the crowd, scanning faces, every nerve on high alert. Somewhere in this glittering sea was Elliot Marrow, the man Darius wanted her to dissect. Her gaze snagged on him near the grand piano. The same salt and pepper hair as in the photo, cut to precision. His navy tux fit like armor. He laughed with two men who radiated influence, the kind of people who spoke in billion-dollar whispers. Elliot Marrow wasn't just important. He was untouchable. Layla's pulse thudded in her ears. She could walk away right now, call the police, expose Darius. But then the image of Amara sleeping flashed in her mind, in the photo of a stranger's hand resting on her child's toy. Running wasn't an option. The approach. She waited for Elliot's companions to drift toward the bar before making her move. Grabbing a flute of champagne from a passing tray, she forced her legs to carry her forward. "Mr. Marrow?" Her voice sounded steady, thank God. He turned, his eyes sweeping over her in a split-second assessment, calculating. "Yes?" "I wanted to say your keynote last month, brilliant." She prayed he'd given one. Men like him always gave keynotes. A faint smile curved his lips. "You were there?" "I watched the stream," she lied smoothly. "Your point about leadership being psychological? That stuck with me." His interest flickered. "Most people only hear the numbers." "I'm a psychologist," she said lightly, sipping the champagne. "I listen for the people behind the numbers." That hooked him. His posture eased, and just like that, she was inside his orbit. The conversation. Within minutes, she had him talking about markets, risk, the burden of decision-making. His words were crisp, rehearsed for public ears. But his hands told a different story. Constant movement, thumb rubbing the edge of his cufflink, tapping the rim of his glass, anxiety masked by confidence. Laila tilted her head. "Ever wish you could just stop being the strong one?" The question froze him for half a second before the practiced smile returned. "Strength is a choice." "But so is breaking," she murmured. His eyes darkened, something raw flickering before the mask slid back into place. "You're very observant, Doctor." "Bennett," she said, pulse racing. Before she could gauge his reaction, movement in the mirror behind the bar caught her eye. Darius, standing near the French doors, watching. He didn't smile, didn't blink, just stared, like a puppeteer measuring his strings. A chill slid down her spine. She turned back to Elliot, heart pounding. "Maybe we can continue this conversation sometime?" "Of course." He handed her a card thick, embossed, weighty with status. "I'd like that." Her fingers trembled as she slipped it into her pocket. Another step deeper into the trap. The signal. As she moved toward the exit, her phone buzzed. She'd hidden it in her coat pocket despite Darius's rules, needing some sense of control. A text from an unknown number lit the screen. "You did well. Now take the red envelope by the piano. Don't look inside until you're home." Layla's stomach clenched. She scanned the room, spotting the envelope tucked beneath a vase of lily by the grand piano blood red against white petals. She slipped it under her coat and walked out, the night air hitting her like a slap. The street was quiet, except for the soft rumble of a car engine. The same black sedan idled at the curb, headlights glowing like predator eyes. She didn't go to it. She didn't look at it. She just walked fast, heels clicking on the wet pavement, praying her legs wouldn't buckle. Home. It was after midnight when she finally sat at her kitchen table, the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. Her mother and Amara slept upstairs. Safe, for now. Laila tore open the red envelope. A single Polaroid slid out. Her breath caught. It was Elliot Marrow taken tonight. From above. Through a window. The angle was intimate, invasive. Across the bottom, scrawled in black ink. Good start. Next, you'll break him. A smaller card fluttered out behind it. A queen of spades this time, the same neat handwriting curling across the face. Every king falls, Doctor. You just need to know where to press. Laila gripped the table, nausea clawing at her throat. She wasn't just playing his game anymore. She was part of his hunt. And the question burned hotter than ever. How many pieces are already on this board? Rain lashed against the kitchen window as Laila stared at the Polaroid of Elliot Marrow. The words scrawled in black ink burned in her mind. Good start. Next, you'll break him. Break him. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a manipulator. She was a therapist trained to mend, not destroy. But what choice did she have? Amara's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs, soft in her sleep. That sound was the only thing holding Laila upright. She shoved the Polaroid and playing card back into the envelope, slid it beneath a loose floorboard under the sink, and pressed the board down with trembling hands. If Mama ever found this. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She jumped. Unknown number. Clock's ticking, Doctor. Marrow's cracks are waiting for you to pry them open. 48 hours. Don't disappoint me. No name, no signature. Just the weight of control pressing down like a steel boot. The first call. Laila dialed the number on Elliot's card before she could lose her nerve. It rang twice. Marrow, a voice answered smooth. Clipped, a man who didn't waste syllables. Mr. Marrow, this is Dr. Laila Bennett. We met at the gala. Pause. Then, Orber. Ah, the psychologist with an eye for stress fractures. How could I forget? She forced a laugh, light, professional. I was hoping we could continue our conversation. Maybe in a quieter setting? You read my mind, he said. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Commander's Palace. Of course, the most iconic restaurant in the city. Public, crowded a little safer. At least she hoped. That night, Laila sat awake on the edge of her bed, drafting mental strategies like battle plans. How do you dismantle a man without losing your soul? She didn't want to hurt Elliot, but what if not doing so meant hurting Amara? She pulled out her notebook, writing words she hated herself for. Probe fears. Question legacy. Pressure decisions. She stared at the list, nausea rising, then slammed the book shut. Commander's Palace. The next day, the sun burned hot against the wrought iron balconies, drying the rain from last night's storm. Laila arrived early, scanning every reflection, every car. Was Darius watching? Of course he was. Inside, the clatter of silverware and low murmur of wealth wrapped the air. She spotted Elliot in a corner booth, sipping something amber from a crystal glass. He stood as she approached, that corporate smile sliding into place. Dr. Bennett, he said warmly, gesturing for her to sit. I'm glad you called. They made small talk over bread pudding souffle and coffee, Elliot's words polished, his charm effortless. But beneath the surface, Laila saw it, the tiny cracks. His eyes darting to his phone too often. The way he clenched his jaw when it buzzed. Big day? She asked softly. Every day's big, he replied, too quickly. Then, after a beat, but yes, the board votes tonight. Make the wrong call, and I could lose everything. There it was, the opening. She leaned in, lowering her voice. That sounds lonely. Carrying all that weight. His shoulders shifted just slightly. It's what I signed up for. But no one signs up to break, she murmured, echoing the line from the gala. He froze. For half a second, the mask slipped, and something raw flickered in his eyes, fear, maybe guilt. Then his phone buzzed again, and the moment shattered. "Excuse me," he said, rising from the booth. He stepped away, voice low, urgent, as he took the call near the bar. Laila exhaled, fingers trembling against the coffee cup. She could feel the invisible strings tightening. This wasn't just about Elliot. Darius was pulling something bigger. Her gaze flicked to the window, and her stomach dropped. Parked across the street, half hidden behind a row of oaks, was the black sedan. The rear window lowered just an inch, enough for her to see him. Darius, watching, smiling faintly, like a man savoring a private joke. The envelope. Elliot returned a few minutes later. Face pale, movements clipped, he tossed cash on the table. "I'm sorry. Something came up." He left without another word. Laila followed him out, every nerve on fire. Across the street, the sedan rolled forward slowly, disappearing into traffic like a shadow melting into night. By the time she reached her car, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Good work. Check your trunk before you go home." Her stomach lurched. She popped the trunk with trembling hands and froze. Inside sat a black leather briefcase, sleek, untouched. A playing card rested on top, Queen of Diamonds. Words sprawled across it in sharp, deliberate ink. "Deliver this to Elliot. Tomorrow. No questions." The weight of the briefcase felt heavier than steel as she lifted it. She didn't need to open it to know. Whatever was inside would drag her even deeper into Darius's game. And for the first time, a terrifying thought pierced through the panic. What if this isn't just about control? What if this is about destruction, and I'm the weapon he's chosen? The briefcase sat on the passenger seat like a ticking bomb, its polished leather gleaming under the gray New Orleans sky. Laila gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles whitened. Every instinct screamed to pull over, ditch it in the Mississippi, and never look back. But then she thought of Amara curled up in her pink sheets, clutching that stuffed giraffe, and the image of Darius's hand resting on it like a silent threat. She drove on. The delivery. Elliot Morrow's office tower rose like a steel monolith in the heart of the CBD, its glass facade reflecting the heavy clouds above. Laila parked 2 blocks away, nerves fraying with each step she took toward the building. She passed security with Elliot's name as her shield, his assistant greeting her with a cool smile, the kind that said, "We know your type, but money talks." Inside the executive suite, everything screamed control. Mahogany walls, oil paintings of men who'd never known hunger, the faint scent of old cigars. Elliot stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw her, his expression flickered surprise, then something sharper. "Dr. Bennett," he said smoothly after hanging up. "You didn't mention you were stopping by." She forced a smile, setting the briefcase on his desk. "I was asked to deliver this." His gaze dropped to the case, and for the first time, she saw it a ripple beneath his polished exterior. His hand tightened on the edge of the desk. "Who gave this to you?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Does it matter?" She countered, heart hammering. He stared at her for a long beat, then flipped the clasps. The lid lifted with a soft click, and Layla's breath hitched. Stacks of cash. Neat, bound bundles filling the case like bricks in a wall. And on top of them, a single manila envelope. Elliot snatched it, ripped it open, and scanned the contents. His jaw locked. The color drained from his face. "What is it?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer, just shoved the papers back inside, slammed the case shut, and moved fast, like a man trying to outrun an earthquake. "Get out, Laila," he snapped, his composure cracking for the first time. "Forget you saw this. Elliot." Now. His voice was a whip, sharp and final. She stumbled out, her pulse roaring in her ears. The Watcher. The elevator doors closed, and Layla sagged against the mirrored wall, bile rising in her throat. Money, documents, something that turned a man like Elliot from ice to panic in seconds. Whatever this was, it wasn't a game anymore. Her phone buzzed before she hit the lobby. Unknown number. "Nice work, Doctor." I saw the fear in his eyes. "Didn't you?" Her stomach nodded. She typed with trembling fingers. "Layla, what's in those papers? What do you want from him?" The reply came instantly. "Darius want?" "No. Need. Elliot owes, and you're going to make sure he pays with more than money." Her blood ran cold. "Layla, I'm done after this." Another buzz. "Darius, you were done the moment you let me in. Check your porch when you get home." The door slid open to the lobby, and Layla nearly collapsed when she saw him. Darius, leaning against a marble pillar, dressed in a charcoal suit, smiling like sin. He didn't move toward her, just touched 2 fingers to his temple in a mock salute. The message was clear. I'm everywhere. The porch. It was nearly dusk when she pulled into her driveway. Her stomach dropped at the sight of a small white box on the porch, tied with a black ribbon. The air around it seemed heavier, charged. Hands trembling, she carried it inside, locking the door behind her. Mama and Amara were in the den, laughing at some cartoon on the TV. That sound was her lifeline as she knelt on the kitchen floor and untied the ribbon. Inside the box was a velvet pouch. She opened it and froze. A diamond cufflink. Heavy, gleaming, engraved with the initials EM. Beside it, a playing card, King of Hearts. Scrawled across the face in Darius's sharp hand. Time to topple the king. And beneath that, one more line that turned her blood to ice. Tomorrow, bring me something personal. Or Amara loses her queen. Layla gripped the counter, fighting the scream clawing up her throat. Her hands shook so violently, the cufflink clattered to the floor, spinning like a tiny blade. Darius didn't just want Elliot broken. He wanted something else, something bigger. And now, the noose was tightening around them all. Layla sat at the kitchen table long after the sound of cartoons faded from the den, the diamond cufflink gleaming like a shard of ice in the dim light. Bring me something personal. Or Amara loses her queen. The weight of the threat pressed against her lungs until every breath felt borrowed. She stared at the velvet pouch, bile rising in her throat. She couldn't keep playing Darius's game, not without knowing the rules. Not without knowing why he'd chosen her. Her eyes flicked to the clock. Nearly midnight. Mama had gone to bed. Amara, safe in her room, clutched that pink giraffe in her tiny hands. For now. Layla opened her laptop and typed with shaking fingers. Elliot Merrow scandal. Elliot Merrow lawsuits. Elliot Merrow controversy. At first, nothing but glossy press releases and puff pieces. A titan of finance, philanthropist, family man. Perfect on paper. But deep in the archives, behind paywalls and buried links, a thread began to unravel. 7 years ago. A hedge fund collapse. 2 whistleblowers dead in what police ruled as unrelated accidents. Millions vanished offshore. Names sealed in a court settlement. And there at the bottom of an old article a name that punched the breath from her lungs. Marcus Cole. Layla froze. Marcus, Darius's brother, listed as a junior analyst at the fund. Her heart slammed. She clicked the obituary. Marcus Cole, 29, found dead in his Atlanta apartment. Survived by younger brother, Darius. Pieces fell into place like a cruel puzzle. This wasn't about money. This wasn't random. This was vengeance, long-growing and razor-sharp. Her phone buzzed, and dread curdled in her gut before she even looked. Unknown number. Learning can be liberating, can't it? Her hands trembled. She typed, "Laila, Marcus was your brother." 3 dots blinked then. Darius. He trusted Elliot. Elliot bled him dry, then hung him out to die. The system called it suicide. I call it murder. Layla's throat tightened. Laila, so you're going to destroy Elliot. Darius, not just destroy, strip him, piece by piece. Like he did to Marcus. Laila, why me? The reply came like a blade sliding between ribs. Darius, because you're the perfect leverage. Smart enough to play the game, soft enough to bleed for family. Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. Darius, tomorrow, noon, you'll take something from Elliot that matters. Not money, not jewelry. Something that would make him crawl if the world saw it. Or the Queen falls. A photo followed. Amara, asleep again. Tonight. The caption, tick, tock, the decision. Laila gripped the counter until her nails bit wood. Rage burned hot behind her ribs, warring with terror. She wanted to scream, to call the police, to drag Elliot into this and force him to end it all. But she knew Darius. He'd thought of every angle. If she slipped, Amara paid first. So she did the only thing left. She prepared to step off the edge. She drove to a Walgreens 24 hours, hood up, and bought a disposable phone, a flash drive, a pack of latex gloves. Her hands moved automatically, but inside, her thoughts howled. Back home, she tucked Amara into bed again, kissed her curls and whispered, "Mommy's got you." Words she prayed weren't a lie. Then she stared at the cufflink under the lamplight, the diamond catching fire, and made herself a promise. If I have to steal Elliot's soul to keep her safe, I'll do it. But when this is over, Darius Cole is going to learn what happens when you push a mother to the brink. The setup. Morning came fast and brutal. At 11:45, Laila sat in her car across from Elliot's tower, palms slick against the steering wheel, heart pounding like a drum in her throat. Her plan was simple, or as simple as anything in this nightmare could be. Gain access to his office during the lunch lull. Find the personal, Darius demanded. Something intimate, something damning. And pray she made it out alive. She slipped on the gloves, grabbed her tote, and crossed the street, under a sky the color of wet slate. Every step felt like a countdown. As the elevator climbed, her reflection stared back at her pale, eyes shadowed, mouth set in a line that wasn't quite fear anymore. Something harder was forming underneath. When the doors slid open, the suite was quiet. Elliot's assistant was gone. His office door stood ajar, a sliver of polished mahogany gleaming in the dim light. Laila stepped inside and froze. The room wasn't empty. Elliot sat behind the desk, phone in hand, his eyes lifting slowly to meet hers. "Dr. Bennett," he said softly, voice like silk stretched over wire. "I was wondering when you'd come back." Elliot's gaze pinned her like a spotlight. Calm on the surface, but something dangerous simmered underneath. "You've been busy, Dr. Bennett," he said, setting his phone down with deliberate care. "Delivering gifts, asking questions, showing up uninvited." Layla's throat tightened. Her excuse stumbled out, thin and brittle. "I wanted to check on you. After the gala, after yesterday, you seemed shaken." His smile was sharp. "You think I don't know what this is? That someone sent you?" Her heart thudded. "Elliot, He rose slowly, smoothing the front of his suit, and walked around the desk until he stood inches from her. His cologne was crisp, cutting through the tension like smoke. "Tell me his name." Layla's pulse roared in her ears. Every option flashed like a slideshow. Lie, run, confess. But Amara's face anchored her. "I can't," she whispered. His jaw flexed. For a beat, silence coiled tight as a wire. Then he chuckled a low, humorless sound. "Darius Cole," he said flatly. The name hit like a gunshot. Her breath hitched. "You know him." "Oh, I know him," Elliot said, eyes like polished steel. "Kid's been circling for years. I kept waiting for him to grow a spine. Didn't think he'd send a therapist to do his dirty work." The contempt in his tone snapped something inside her. She straightened, voice steady now. "He blames you for Marcus." Elliot's smile faltered. "Just a fraction, but enough." "That's not on me," he said too quickly. "Marcus was weak. He played in a game he couldn't handle." The casual cruelty in those words hollowed her stomach. "You ruined him," she whispered. Elliot's eyes hardened. Marcus ruined himself. He stepped closer, his shadow swallowing her. "And if you think you're walking out of here with anything that hurts me, you're as naive as he was." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a vibration that seemed to shake the air between them. Elliot's gaze flicked down. "Go ahead," he said softly. "Answer." Her fingers fumbled as she pulled the phone out. "Unknown number. 2 minutes, Laila, or the Queen falls." Attached, a live feed of her own front porch. Amara's pink bicycle gleamed in the frame. A man's silhouette moved just beyond the edge. Ice filled her veins. She looked up at Elliot, desperation clawing her throat. "He's at my house," she rasped. "He'll hurt her." Elliot's jaw tightened. For the first time, real alarm flickered in his eyes. "Give me the phone." She hesitated, then handed it over. Elliot's voice dropped to a blade. "Cole," he said into the receiver, like a man addressing a ghost. "You want to play this through? Fine, but you're not the only one with blood to spill." The call ended. Elliot grabbed his coat and a small black case from the credenza. His movements were fast, surgical. "Come on," he snapped. "What? Where?" "To your house," he said, eyes blazing. "You want your kid alive. You're with me." The ride. The car tore through slick streets, wipers beating like frantic wings. Laila clutched the door handle, her breath coming in shallow bursts. Beside her, Elliot checked the gun in his lap with terrifying ease. "You have a gun?" she whispered. He shot her a look. "You think you're the first person he's tried to use?" A city blurred past in streaks of neon and rain. Every second stretched like wire until finally, her street loomed ahead quiet, too quiet. The black sedan was there, engine idling under the streetlight. Elliot killed the headlights and eased to a stop. "Stay in the car," he ordered, stepping out into the wet night like a shadow in silk. The confrontation. Laila ignored him. She pushed the door open and followed, shoes splashing through puddles. The porch light burned weakly, illuminating 2 men facing off at the bottom of the steps. Darius stood calm, hands loose at his sides, rain slicking his face into a mask of stone. "Elliot," he said, voice smooth as poison. "I was wondering when you'd crawl out from behind your money. And I was wondering when you'd grow a pair." Elliot shot back, gun steady in his hand. "You think blackmail makes you powerful? You're a parasite." Darius's laugh was low, humorless. "You murdered my brother. He killed himself. You handed him the rope," Darius snarled. "You made him believe he mattered, then bled him dry." His voice dropped to a whisper that cut through the rain. "Now I'll make you watch everything you love burn." Layla's heart slammed. "Stop," she cried, stepping between them, hands raised. "Enough? This doesn't bring Marcus back. It doesn't fix anything." For a flicker of a moment, Darius's eyes softened. "He was all I had." "Then don't take what's all I have," she whispered, tears hot in the rain. "Please, Darius." Behind her, Elliot shifted, gun still leveled. "You're wasting your breath," he muttered. "Men like him." The crack of the gunshot shattered the night. For one split second, Laila didn't know who pulled the trigger until Elliot staggered back, crimson blooming across his pristine shirt. The gun clattered to the pavement. Darius lowered his weapon, eyes locked on hers. Rain slicked his face, but his hands didn't shake. "It's over," he said quietly. "Go to your daughter." Laila stared, shock rooting her to the steps. "You'll go to prison." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Maybe, but Marcus can rest now." He dropped the gun at her feet and walked into the rain, his figure dissolving into the night like smoke. Red and blue lights painted the street an hour later. Questions flew. Statements were taken. Elliot Marrow dead from a single shot to the chest. Darius Cole gone like a phantom. They called it self-defense. They called Laila a hero for trying to stop a violent man. But headlines never printed the truth, the game, the cards, the queen who almost fell. That night, Laila lay beside Amara, listening to her daughter's steady breath. The rain had stopped, but its ghost lingered in the air, heavy and electric. On the knitstand sat a plain white envelope slipped under her door sometime after the cops left. Inside was a single playing card, Queen of Hearts, and 3 words scrawled in sharp black ink: "You survived, for now." Laila stared at it, her pulse a drumbeat in the dark, and knew this wasn't over. The game was just waiting for its next move. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore, the assumptions we let slide, the voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere, someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward, ask more, doubt what's too quiet. Because what we choose to see, or not see, decides what happens next. Like, comment, share, not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks, and how truth finds daylight.